Hi, my name is Jimmy Williams with NFL Draft Diamonds. And here with me today, I have a diamond in the rough. I'd like you guys to meet. This here is Myren Harris. He's a running back out of Davenport University. Nice to have you today, sir.
Hey, I'm glad to be here, Jimmy.
Yeah, so standout running back there for Davenport has had a fantastic career of over 3,500 total yards on the ground and putting himself in a position where he's going to be maybe a Davenport guy who's going to get his chance at the next level here very soon. So, Myron, go ahead, introduce yourself, and we'll get going.
Well, Myron Harris, obviously, running back at Davenport, past 2 years. Been blessed to have a, great career being coached, by Sparky and being surrounded by, other guys, who are top prospects. So being around that energy and having that atmosphere has been nothing but a blessing. So,
Who done very well in the GLIAC, been first team all conference, at least a few years running. I know you were second team 1 year, so I mean, I suppose I guess you've been all GLIAC every single season during your time in the GLIAC. Offensive back of the year this past year. And you have that, I think, on another season as well. Was that, I guess, the previous year too, right?
yep, the 2023 season and then this season, yep.
Cool. And of course, started your career in college at Wayne State. So, but before we get there, I kind of want to take things to the beginning. Talk to me about the early days of you as a football player. How long have you played the sport?
Well, I've been playing since I was like roughly around 5. Me, my two brothers. I have a twin brother who's a DB here at Davenport, and then a little brother who plays running back, who's also at Davenport now too. He just transferred from Youngstown, Ohio. But
Nice.
I'll never forget. My dad came home one day. Was just like, "Yeah, I want to play football," and we were like, "Sure." Football is not a sport that we grew up. And was like, "Yeah, we want to play." So kind of just picked that up, and then me and my twin brother, we rode the bench our first year. And we looked at each other and was like, "This is the last time, like like we're gonna do that." And being so young, you really don't understand like what's going on. We just knew that we didn't want to be on the sideline. So from that day forward, we just hit the ground running.
Cool. Were you always a running back? I mean, there in the early days, or did you flirt with other positions?
Well, growing up and playing in Little League, I kind of did everything. In my heart of hearts, I was a quarterback. So I started officially playing quarterback when I was in the seventh grade. No, si- no, sixth grade, and then all the way through high school. And then my junior year, I say like the week before the first game, like a week and a half or 2 weeks, my head coach at the time, Scott Merchant, him and Andy Denrider switched my position to running back, and then I was the third string. And then after the first game, I had like 100 on the ground, and then playing running back, which was my first game against Saline, my junior year, and we ended up winning states that same year at Chippewa Valley, and so then just hit the ground running. So I've been playing running back officially since my junior year of high school.
Cool. Again, as you had mentioned, from Chippewa Valley, attended Chippewa Valley High School. And along with some football, I also have in my notes that you did some other sports as well, basketball,
Yeah.
track and field.
Yeah.
Talk about you as a high school athlete, maybe your fondest memory.
Oh, my fondest memory, well, besides winning the state championship, which is a cliche, answer now, I would say my fondest memory would be winning districts um are my junior year in basketball, playing point guard. I mean, I tell people all the time if I was 6'2", 6'3", I would be, playing basketball because that's really what I'm good at is, playing basketball. But yeah, it was right after the state championship run. People didn't think our basketball team was going to be that good, and then, you know, end up leading the charge, and then we got our a district win, and then made it to regional. So like we were one game away from going to Callahan Hall, and then to the Breslin. So, my junior year. So that's like my fondest memory.
So, just a side question. I'm assuming that you're somewhat of a basketball fan. You Pistons fan? Like, talk to me for a second.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's probably not a good thing to say, but I honestly enjoy watching basketball more than football. I love watching good basketball games. Yeah, so I'm a Pistons fan. I actually just went to a game. Me and my father, we went to a game I think they played the Raptors. Yeah, it was like a month or so ago, and or a couple months ago, and we ended up going to a game, and I was loving every second of it. So,
Nice. Obviously, a little bit of different pace than football. So, I mean, there's a lot to like about the sport. But I mean, obviously, you chose to pursue football. What is it about the game of football that you like the most?
just the lessons that it teaches you. For me, a kid with a lot of energy, a kid that needed to mature, all that good stuff. Football definitely taught me the lessons and made me more aware of certain things and challenged, you know, my belief in myself. Challenged, if I really want to do this, and pursue this, seriously. So, being playing in football has been nothing but a blessing to me, and I credit football a lot to my, like my growth as a person and as a young man, as I'm becoming a man.
Cool. So, Myron, at a high school, you end up really being amongst these other guys. You know, it's the pandemic. We're wondering what in the world the hell is happening in this
Right.
world of ours. Putting you in a position. You were at Wayne State at the time. I guess waiting your time because I mean, again, nobody's playing football, or at least most people aren't playing football. But
Right.
you do eventually hit the field and start playing for them. Can you talk about the early days of you being at Wayne State and just kind of like the early development of you as a college athlete?
Well, COVID was kind of a blessing, for me. I mean, I was coming into college off of, my first surgery in my knees, like I've had two now. Um, but I had two meniscus surgeries and I was coming off of one going into my freshman year. So that gave me a nice year to truly develop. But recover most importantly to be able to be in position to do what I did, my freshman year. So being at Wayne was, I mean, nothing but a blessing. Being a part of that lineage and brotherhood of running backs such as Drake Bell, Tony Davis, all those guys, the guys that have like went on to play professionally, especially like in the NFL, some Detroit Lions, natives being able to pick their brain and them help me take my game to another level. So.
Cool. Uh, Talk me through you staying in the GLIAC and transferring. I don't know exactly how the mentality was there. I mean, maybe you got some, I don't know, some flack from some people with you transferring there versus perhaps maybe, somewhere out of conference. But
Right.
talk about how that transfer happened and how you ended up at Davenport.
Well, prior, entering the portal, like the decision was either go D1 or stay in the GLIAC because, the GLIAC is one of the better conferences, in the country. As we see the past couple of years, the team that have won the national championship has come out of the GLIAC. So, the GLIAC definitely, produces those caliber, type of guys. And plus, I mean, GLIAC was a conference where, I can guess you could say somewhat, sort of dominating. So, my thing was like, I just wanted to stay in that vein. But coming to Davenport was a shocker. I mean, a shocker to me. Even playing in my freshman year, we beat them and we had a terrible season. And they were our first win and my first start. And so this was a school that was frowned upon. I mean, and then next thing like with their success in 2022, entering the portal, I felt really comfortable, trying to be a part of, what they were trying to do and being under Coach Sparky and his staff and just being able to learn and, be able to have access to what he has access to and who he's connected to and just being able to soak all that in as a player. I think that was detrimental and key to my success and my development to get to this point. So kind of choosing Davenport was kind of a no-brainer just because of what was already going on and plus the type of coaches and caliber and the team camaraderie, the brotherhood here, the team atmosphere, all that good stuff was everything that I needed and more to, be at this point.
Cool. Myron, for what it is, there are some doubters out there who would just say, "Hey, this guy is just a small school, player, small school prospect. Maybe hasn't played anybody." Despite the GLIAC being as good as it is, how would you respond to those critics of basically saying he's just a small school guy?
I mean, that's just, to me, that's just people trying to give, just make an excuse to, diminish the type of player, like that you are. If, honestly, it's almost a compliment, by you saying that, you're letting me know how good you think I really am. So, and you're trying to take it away from me by just saying, oh, he's a small school player. But like I said, regardless of the GLIAC being as good as it is, I mean, being a small school player is not only a great thing, but it's a challenge, within itself. I think it has its perks, like playing Division 1. I can't really speak too much because I don't have that, like experience. But from what I hear, it's straight to the point, straight, hard nosed. It's either you got it or you don't. And some guys truly develop, but being a small school guy, you have a chance to develop, gain your confidence and really see if you can consistently be elite. Because, for example, you could be average and go, like in Division 1 and still go to the NFL, where the scouts will come to the small schools like a Davenport and tell us if you're not dominating your competition here, then you might not have no chance. So that's the challenge that I love that it presents. It forces you to be elite and consistently elite to be in that, like in these types of conversations. So.
Yeah, I mean, you have put yourself in that level, though. I mean, being elite there in the GLIAC, and let's talk about the GLIAC. I mean, like you had mentioned, very excellent, conference. Again, Division 2, but still a lot of great teams in there. Very competitive, of course, and for what it's worth, Myron, I do feel like we get people who. I don't know, just gritty players that are small schoolers sometimes, like guys
Yeah.
who haven't been spoon fed like their entire lives, guys who've had to work for it, which you have certainly done so during your time in college. So let's talk about you as a prospect. I mean, obviously running back, and again, as I mentioned before, a very prolific running back there in the GLIAC. Uh, Talk about what about you as an athlete, you as a prospect in this draft. How would you define yourself as a prospect?
Simple, just like an every down back that's versatile. I mean, if you need that bruiser, I can be that bruiser. I can hit the home run ball, from time to time. I can flex out and and be just as a effective as a wide receiver. Just taking pride in not being one dimensional. That's something that my dad used to preach. Growing up, my parents preached that, and then you know, uh, being here too, Coach Sparky is always challenging us to elevate. Like, how much higher can you continue to go, but be consistent in what you've already, been good at. So, myself as a prospect, I would just describe myself as a, hard, gritty player. I can get out the mud. I can be super physical. I can be pretty, finesse. I can get out there and get the hard nosed yards. I can get your 3rd and 20. I can convert that. I've done that. You know, doing all that stuff. So I just say just a versatile back that can do pretty much everything.
Yeah, the way that they kind of used you this year is, I mean, obviously they fed you the ball a lot. I mean, and sometimes it's quite literally, just kind of eating up clock, establishing, that, when we're looking at like, obviously, you know, what is it? Uh, I'm trying to think of the word here, but you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
just establishing the fact that you're the guys that are running the show, and you guys are doing it. And as you had mentioned, you can be flexed out as a wide receiver. It did fairly well. This past season was actually second on your team in receptions. 32 receptions this past year, 336 receiving yards. So again, can be utilized as a receiver in many ways. So growing up in the Detroit area, Michigan, perhaps. I don't know if you were a fan of anybody there, like for the Lions or something. But I mean, who are you a big fan of at your, you know, basically at your position?
Well, my dream team, growing up was always the Lions, even when they sucked. And I love saying that because people would think I'm a bandwagoner. I'm like, nah, I've always loved the Lions. But growing up, I would say just I mean, because I was one of those guys that like because I never played in one position, I had a favorite player, different favorite player like throughout the season or every year, and so like, but predominantly, when you play was Calvin Johnson, just the way that like he's big, he's everything that you think he is, but he's more than that. Like he's not only big, but he's fast, right? He can catch anything, like within his radius. There's no ball too high, too low, or too far, that he can't get. So just him being elite and consistent is something that I admired about him. So growing up, just watching him and see how he conducted himself and handled himself he's one of the reasons why he's one of my favorite players.
I mean, I think whether or not you grew up in Michigan or you grew up anywhere else, if you are not mentioning Calvin Johnson amongst the elite, you're just playing with yourself, man. Like you don't even
Right.
on. He was what he was, and he's a Hall of Famer.
Right. I'm gonna say
So
he
what
does
else
have that
can you
gold
say?
jacket. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. I would give him a second gold jacket if we could. He's that damn good. Um,
Right.
but let's go ahead and talk about this past season, man. I mean, you guys ended up going 7-4.
Yeah.
Maybe not exactly what you wanted, but I mean, you did get a whole lot of great wins, a lot of great moments. I kind of want to talk about a couple of them for you, if you don't mind. Um,
Sure.
Actually, an earlier game in the season, wanted to talk about your time against William Jewell, where really utilized you as a receiver in that game. You had a very good reception in that game, 35 yards. I don't know if you remember that particular play against William Jewell, but very early in the game. Talk about it a little bit if you can remember.
You know, playing with alongside guys like a Preston Smith, who's a top prospect, coming out of D2, him being a receiver, that he is, you kind of have to figure out different ways, to be effective, right? Because at some point, like it gets easy to just for like just to throw it up to him or whatever. But just being able to play alongside him, and then in that game more specifically, I mean, I had to do more just because of their defensive game plan. They were trying to crowd the box, so I had to thin out the box by spreading them out and being more effective in the pass game to make them respect the fact that yes, I'm a big back, but I can get out of there and I could take it down. So I think I remember the play you're talking about. It was in the first half. We was right middle on the right hash. I caught a swing pass on the first drive of the game. I think it was the first play too, and I took it down the sideline to get in the red zone. Yeah,
Yeah,
I think.
it was very early in that game. So
Yeah,
very early in the game, you take a pass out to the right and you're gone for like 35 yards. So
yeah,
um very nice. I mean, you guys were able to establish, momentum in that game early. It was kind of a slow game, if we're being honest, only 17
yeah,
to 7, but I mean,
yeah.
still able to come out with a win there against William Jewell. Want to talk about a couple more homecoming against your former team, Wayne State. Did a very good job there. Had a great run, actually in the fourth quarter. I don't
Yeah.
know if you can kind of walk me through that moment, but I mean that was like I think it was your longest run of this past season.
Was it the 60-yard touchdown or the 30-yard touchdown?
Yeah, it was a 67 yarder.
Yeah. So that game was, interesting. That was probably one of the most difficult games I've ever played in just because my role that game was completely different than what it usually is, which is like, the ball is in my hands predominantly, of the game. And that game, I was supposed to be more of a, like a pass blocker. Sorry. And so, oh my gosh. And so, I was a pass blocker that game. So all my touchdowns and those yards didn't come until the fourth quarter. So that run specifically, I was telling guys on the sideline like I'm about to break one, because I feel it, bro. And it's been too long. I went the whole game and not breaking one. And that play specifically, I remember looking at our quarterback, Michael Horror at the time, and I'm like, yeah, I'm about to score. Like I knew I was. And then as soon as I broke through the line, I mean, I'm talking about everybody was in the box. And so as soon as I seen that one crease, I took it and thank God I had enough endurance to get there. you know.
Obviously, plays like that don't happen without an offensive line really opening things up for you. Give a shout out to some of those guys real quick, man. I mean, I
Yeah,
know
I
that
mean,
they put you in a great situation. This really not just this past season, but I mean, since your time here at Davenport.
yeah, I mean, anytime, like getting those accolades don't come by themselves, right? And football is not a sport where you get individual stuff and it's just all you. Like it really does take a village. So, I mean, the O line's, been great. The past 2 years, like the O line was almost completely different from the year before. But this past year, like you got Sam Lofton Center, leading the charge, Adam Sarjo, Armani Baskins, Trey, Zachary Slapnicker, who's a prospect this coming year. Having guys like that who want to block for you, like that's the thing that as a running back you look for and you love it. Being a quarterback, you want an O line that's going to block for you and block for you however long they need to while you sit in that pocket and make the decision. So being a running back, I appreciate O linemen, just for those 2 to 3 seconds, of them holding the block, the fact that they're, willing to pancake guys for me and open the holes for me and be excited for me when I come through, because they know that I'm coming, so those guys, man, the big hogs, baby.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you gotta love them. Uh, of course, had a fairly decent, season this past year. But we do need to close the door on that and see what in the world's happening these days with you. What are you doing right now as you're training and moving forward?
Yeah, just sharpening my game in the areas that need to be sharpened up on. Kind of just nitpicking myself and seeing where I could take, my game to the next level, not only physically but mentally. You know, Talking about going to the, like the NFL, it's all about X's and O's. Everybody's athletic, but like what's going to separate you, and that's you being able to speak the game, being able to see the game and process everything, like this. So my focus primarily, has been just to lock in on, film, breaking down defenses more. I mean, as a running back, to be honest, I play kind of one of the dumbest positions on the field, right? So I really don't have to know much, but that's the quarterback in me. I like to know, everything, right? So being able to break down certain defenses and, kind of see runs develop, before a pre-snap, being able to look at the front seven and be able to tell, okay, if they're aligned to this, then I might do this. So that's just been like my focus is just making sure that I'm sharp, like with everything. Because being a smaller school guy, they're looking for reasons to why you don't qualify. And as a small school guy, what makes it fun is that you get to erase those question marks and make it impossible for them to do that. As long as you have the willpower, the grit, and the mentality for it.
Cool. Myron actually had a fairly decent pro day recently. I mean, just kind of talking about your overall athleticism, fairly solid. Um, 4.59 40, 9.11 broad jump, 37-inch vertical, 19 bench reps, uh, shuttle, great, 4.4, L drill, very nice, 7 seconds. Talk about your pro day, man. What did you get most out of your pro day?
Just being around the guys, just being in that atmosphere, to compete, like as a player and, like as one of, the guys on the team, there's nothing I love more than those pressure moments where, it's just all eyes on you, the spotlight's on you, people coming to see you perform, to see if you are going to perform and if they have, any expectations. So, for me, just being able to be around the guys, one more time, and to just have fun with it and just be in that moment was the thing that I got the most out of it. Obviously being in front of the scouts, all that good stuff, showcasing yourself. But honestly, I hated the testing part. For me, my mentality was test good, do the best I can. But my money maker and where I was going to turn heads, was my position work. And rightfully so, thanking God that I did, like exceptionally well in my position work. And then, scouts were, pleased with that to be able to see it in person and see how I move, and being the only running back there, all eyes were really on me. And I, my mentality was, I dare you to find a wrinkle. So that was, fun and a nice challenge, to
Nice.
have.
I always think like with all these tests, it'd be so much nicer to see these guys actually, with all their gear on, give them all their gear, give them all their, padding and everything, put the ball in his hands and then have him do some of these drills. I would like to see how these drills would come out, but did
Right.
fairly nice for yourself, position yourself fairly well. Any one-on-ones with some scouts, like any interviews or how'd those go?
Well, so prior leading up to the pro day, Dallas reached out, Seattle, and the coach reached out personally. Obviously teams would come in and see you, during the season, checked up on you, see how you were doing. So the pro day was very familiar, for me. Just like I mentioned earlier, being here at Davenport, you see almost all 32 teams up here. If I had to put a rough estimate about it, it was like 20, almost 20 something teams, like that came up here. Like at the pro day, I go, to get my, like my measurements and stuff. And like before they announce my name, scouts are already calling me by name because I've seen them before. Right. So having that, familiar faces, and energy there, was good too. So I mean, yeah.
Cool. Well, Myron, kind of want to take a brief moment to meet the guy under the helmet, see if there's anything more about you that we need to know before we wrap up our time. So, anything really? I mean, you had mentioned, obviously, a bit of your family, but anything else about you, whether it be your hobbies, your interests, you have any other fun facts or anything to share about yourself? Go ahead and give us a little something.
Yeah, no, I have two fun facts that by you looking at me, you will never tell. And I do these both exceptionally well. I'm a musician and I love to read books, right? Oh, and I'm a good rollerblader too. I love
All right,
rollerblading. And
that works.
so, yeah, so growing up, like my dad plays the piano, the organ. My mom sings. So I grew up in the church, playing like my twin brother plays the bass. I started out playing, like the keys, and then transitioned to the drums. So I do both. And so actually, like this past Sunday, I just played at this church on Sunday, and so playing the drums. So like those are my hobbies outside of football. When I can't get to a gym, those are like my the ways I have that release. So and can find that fix. So yeah, so those are the things I like to do, and there's nothing better than sitting on the couch watching a good movie too. So
Cool. Do you remember the set from last Sunday? Like what you played?
yeah, we played Praise by Brandon Lake, a new thing coming by Elevation, Be Praised by Maverick City, and Worthy by Elevation again, I think.
Cool,
So
cool. I had to put you on the spot there to see exactly what you're playing, but
yeah, no,
uh, for what it's worth, I mean, I do think it is kind of nice having somewhat of a musical background. Obviously, brings to mind things such as creativity, which obviously you can use at your position, of course. But then also, you had mentioned you play the drums. The one thing that I love about drummers is they got these huge guns, that they bring to the table. Like every single drummer, like even like some of the female drummers that are out there, like
yeah,
they are ripped. Like, and so obviously, man, I mean, you obviously showcasing the guns out there as a drummer. Certainly did that at your pro day, 19 bench reps. I'm pretty sure you could have punched out one more any given day,
yeah.
easy.
Uh,
But is what it is. Mention that you like to read some books. Something that perhaps you would recommend.
well, I'm kind of like a weird book reader. I don't read your typical books. I like books that challenge you mentally. So I like more of like psychological books. But if I was to like just dibble in anything, I'd say I like nonfiction. So like growing up, I read Diary of a Kid, Harry Potter, Goosebumps. I read all those books, but I really love like like mental growth books. How to, you know. All types of stuff. Like I'm just a guy. Like I love to learn. Like I have the spirit to learn. So I'm always looking for different things to get better at. So that's why if I do read a book, I usually gravitate towards more of those books or just, books about faith, and how to strengthen your faith as an athlete and all that good stuff. And so,
Cool. Definitely appreciate that growth. I mean, obviously you can't be, reading Diary of a Wimpy Kid when you're, 22 years old.
all
So
right.
that's kind of how that goes.
I mean, hey,
But
don't get it twisted, Jimmy. Hey, I'll pop open a book and still read a diary of a kid book. So
because
I've
I
never
think they're
twisted,
on like
never.
15 or 16 books in that series or something like
Yeah.
that. I mean, it's pretty deep now.
Yeah, I mean, dude, I went from Captain Underpants to Diary of a Wimpy Kid, and then to more. So,
It's so funny talking about the old days, which might have been like last year. But no, man, appreciate the time to get to know you as a person and player. Do need to wrap up our time, Myron. As we do so, go ahead and talk to all these people once again. Tell them what makes you a great competitor in this draft, a guy who deserves an opportunity in the NFL. Close with your thoughts.
very fortunate to be in this position. I would say that I'm a rare find. Like I'm a diamond in the rough. Seriously, like it's the only thing that makes me different and separates me from everybody else is just the name on my across my chest. But that also makes me great too. Being able to bring my versatility to a table, my leadership, to a locker room, my energy to a weight room, and all that good stuff, and my energy to a position room too. So having all those things and the tangibles and being blessed, with everything else, I say I bring up a lot, more upside, to a team, and it's always funny to see, people's reaction to me because yes, like I look like I can, just ground and pound, which I can, but then I can get out there, and be shifty and be slick and stuff. So bringing all that I bring to the table, I think that, you know, makes me qualified, to be able to have this conversation, to be in this position and then go compete and then compete at a high level. So, you know, I want it all and I'm going for blood in everything I do. So just making it there is not enough for me. I'm trying to really
Got
do it.
Gotcha. Definitely solid athlete. Has had a fantastic career there, and now putting himself in a position to get an opportunity here very soon in the NFL. Going to see him in a camp somewhere. I know that for certain. Myron, we just kind of want to wish you all the best in your journey. Okay.
Thank you, Jimmy. Thanks for having me.
Sure thing. Once again, Myron Harris, running back out of Davenport University. Check this guy out.